What if I told you the biggest miracle in your life is already waiting, right inside you? Not in money, not in success, not even in the future, but in the silence of your own mind. Today, I'll tell you a story. A story about a restless young man who discovered that by emptying his mind, life gave him more than he ever asked for. In the middle of a bustling city lived a young man named Ethan. At only 25, his days already felt heavier than they should. Every morning he woke up with thoughts rushing in like a storm: unfinished work, unpaid bills, the fear of losing his job, the haunting memory of past failures. Even before his feet touched the floor, his mind was already exhausted. At work, Ethan's body was present, but his thoughts wandered endlessly. He replayed old mistakes in his head, worried about what others thought of him, and imagined 100 possible futures, most of them dark. His coworkers saw him as quiet, but inside his head was a marketplace of noise, 1,000 voices speaking all at once. When night came, rest did not arrive. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind chasing shadows of regret and worry. His heart longed for peace, but the more he tried to force sleep, the louder his mind became. By morning, he rose weary, dragging himself through another cycle of unrest. Ethan tried to find relief in distractions, scrolling endlessly through his phone, watching movies until dawn, hanging out with friends. But when the laughter faded and the screen went dark, the noise inside returned, stronger than before. It felt as if he was running in circles, searching for silence in all the wrong places. One evening, drained from yet another long day, Ethan wandered into a small park near his apartment. He collapsed onto a wooden bench, eyes heavy, heart restless. As he gazed blankly at the crowd moving around him, something unusual caught his attention. Not far away sat an elderly monk, cross-legged under a tree. The world buzzed with chaos, car horns, chatter, footsteps, but the old man seemed untouched by it all. His face carried a soft, steady smile, as if he lived in a completely different world. For the first time, Ethan wondered, how can he be so calm, while my own mind never stops screaming? Ethan hesitated at first. Something about the old monk's presence was unusual, like a quiet flame glowing steadily in the middle of a storm. After a few minutes of watching in silence, Ethan gathered his courage and approached. "Sir," Ethan said softly, almost afraid of disturbing the calmness around him, "how can you sit here so peacefully when everything out here is so loud, so chaotic?" The old monk slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was gentle, almost like a mirror that reflected no judgment. For a long moment, he simply looked at Ethan, as if listening beyond words. Then he spoke in a calm, steady voice. "Because I emptied my mind." Ethan blinked in confusion. "Empty your mind? How is that even possible? Don't we need our thoughts to survive? To solve problems? To succeed?" The old monk chuckled quietly. "Thoughts are like clouds. They pass through the sky, but the sky itself is always clear and vast. The problem is, young man, you chase the clouds, trying to control them, hold them, or push them away. And that, young man, makes you restless." Ethan frowned, letting the words sink in. "So, I shouldn't fight my thoughts? I should just let them pass?" The monk nodded. "Yes, let them come, let them go. Do not hold, do not resist. Only then can you see the clear sky, the mind that is free. And in that freedom, peace is found." Something stirred inside Ethan. It sounded so simple, yet it felt like the very thing he had been missing his whole life. For years, he had tried to control his thoughts, fight them, bury them. But what if the answer was not to fight, but to let go? As the evening light faded, Ethan thanked the monk and walked home. For the first time in years, he carried not a heavier mind, but a small spark of hope. That night, Ethan sat on the floor of his small apartment. He turned off the lights, closed his eyes, and tried to do what the old monk had told him: empty his mind. At first, he took a slow breath in and out. For a brief moment, there was silence. But then, as if waiting behind a door, the thoughts rushed in. His unpaid bills, his unfinished report, a memory of being embarrassed in front of his colleagues. Even what he should eat tomorrow suddenly became urgent. Frustrated, Ethan muttered, "This isn't working." The more he tried to push the thoughts away, the louder they became, circling like restless birds. He felt like giving up. But then he remembered the monk's words: "Thoughts are like clouds, let them pass." So Ethan tried again. This time, he didn't fight the thoughts. When a memory appeared, he imagined it drifting by, like a cloud floating across the sky. When a worry screamed for attention, he simply whispered in his mind, "I see you, now go." Something subtle shifted. The thoughts were still there, but they lost their grip. In between them, Ethan noticed small gaps of silence, seconds where his mind felt lighter, quieter. Those seconds felt like drops of water on dry ground. It wasn't perfect. In fact, most of the time, his mind kept wandering. But for the first time, he realized silence was possible. He didn't need to fight for it. He only needed to allow it. When he finally opened his eyes, an hour had passed. And though nothing in his life had changed, inside, something had begun to awaken. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan continued practicing. At first, it was only 5 minutes of sitting quietly, then 10. Eventually, he found himself spending half an hour in silence each evening. It wasn't easy. Sometimes his mind still wandered restlessly, but little by little, something began to change. At work, Ethan noticed he could focus more clearly. Tasks that once felt overwhelming no longer drained him. Instead of drowning in panic, he approached problems with a calmer perspective. His coworkers began to notice. "Ethan, you seem different lately," one colleague said. "More present, more patient." Outside of work, the changes were even more surprising. When Ethan visited his parents, he actually listened, truly listened, to their stories instead of thinking about his own worries. With friends, he laughed more easily, no longer weighed down by constant tension. Even strangers seemed to respond to his new calmness, smiling at him on the street as if sensing the peace he carried. The biggest miracle, however, was within. Ethan slept through the night for the first time in years. His body felt lighter, his chest freer, as though a burden had quietly been lifted. He no longer woke up dreading the day ahead. Instead, he arose with curiosity, wondering what the day might bring. One evening, as he sat quietly on his balcony, Ethan looked up at the night sky. The stars shone above him, silent and steady. For the first time, he felt connected, not to his racing thoughts, but to something larger, deeper, and infinitely peaceful. He smiled to himself. The monk had been right. By emptying his mind, he hadn't lost anything. Instead, life had begun filling the empty space, with clarity, with peace, with unexpected miracles. One afternoon, Ethan returned to the same park where he had first met the old monk. The man was there again, seated under the same tree, his eyes closed, his presence steady as ever. Ethan approached with a smile that came naturally now. "Sir," Ethan began, "I did what you told me. I tried to empty my mind, and something happened. I feel lighter, calmer. Even my life feels different." The monk opened his eyes, a knowing smile spreading across his face. "Good. You have begun to taste freedom." Ethan tilted his head. "Freedom?" "Yes," the monk replied. "The mind can be a servant, or it can be a master. Most people let their thoughts control them. They are dragged into worries of tomorrow and regrets of yesterday. But when you see thoughts as passing clouds, you are no longer chained to them. You are free." Ethan reflected in silence. He had lived years as a prisoner of his own mind, trapped in noise he could not escape. But now, with even small moments of silence, he had glimpsed something new, something vast and unshakable. The monk continued, "Remember, an empty mind is not nothing. It is a space, and in that space miracles enter. Peace, clarity, creativity, even love. When your mind is full, there is no room for anything new. But when it is empty, the whole universe can flow through you." Ethan's chest grew warm at the words. He realized that peace was not about running away from life. It was about creating space within himself, a stillness that allowed life's beauty to enter naturally. That day, Ethan left the park not just with relief, but with understanding. Emptying the mind was not an escape. It was a doorway to living more fully. Years passed, and Ethan was no longer the restless young man who once wandered into the park searching for peace. The storm inside him had quieted, replaced by a steady calm that guided his days. He still worked, still faced challenges, still lived in the same busy city, but everything felt different because he was different. At work, he became a source of clarity. When others panicked over deadlines, Ethan remained composed, offering solutions with a clear mind. His presence alone seemed to calm the people around him. Friends often said, "When we're with you, it feels easier to breathe." But the greatest transformation was not in how others saw him. It was in how he saw life. Ethan no longer chased happiness in possessions or achievements. He found joy in simple things: the warmth of morning sunlight, the sound of rain, the laughter of children in the street. What once felt ordinary now appeared miraculous. Sometimes strangers would approach him, much like he had once approached the old monk. "How can you be so calm in this noisy world?" they would ask. Ethan would smile, remembering the lesson he had been given years ago, and he would answer softly, "Empty your mind. Let go of the noise. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers." In that way, Ethan carried forward the wisdom that had saved him, becoming a quiet light for others still trapped in the storms of their own minds. The story closes not with Ethan's end, but with a reminder for us, the listeners. Perhaps right now your mind is crowded with worries, regrets, and endless thoughts. But as Ethan discovered, when you create even the smallest space of silence, you allow life to surprise you. Empty your mind, and you may find, just as he did, that life is already filled with miracles.